Ha ha, I did
Dang, I love that. Oh,
it. Yes, I do that live every Thursday. I do that live. That's not recorded onto the thing. So, oh, that worked. I'm surprised that worked. I'm surprised my voice didn't just crack under the weight of all the ugh that has been going through my system for the past week. Greetings, everyone.
nothing like ugh to make you feel alive.
That's right. That's right. Good evening, everyone. Snorted Poopus Cuber Catman, aka Dee Myers, is here in chat. Good evening, my friend. Apollome's Minion. Hello, Apollome's Minion. Good evening. Dave Bob, my brother from another mother. Chris Persia. I'm not going to say Mark because of what he said earlier. One day, Loki will greet me. Frowny face. Frowny face. I did greet you. Did greet you. Purple Valkyrie, good evening to the Purple Valkyrie of Valhalla. Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all have had a great day. Olds Gamer 72 Cutlass, I see you, and I see you, Snort a Poopus Cuber. I see you. Hello. How are
Dave
you
Bomb,
doing?
Pat S, Louis Sparrow. There's a lot of people here that are hiding in the back.
Yes, just
Hello,
chilling
everybody.
in the back, waiting for the creepy story. It's not gonna be a creepy story tonight. I'm gonna change stuff up. We're gonna do kind of like a little fact finding mission on a certain Celtic goddess of Christmas that likes to slit people open and leave little presents inside. Anyway,
Doesn't that sound magical?
uh huh. Uh, Bunkwaddle, good evening, Bunkwaddle. Glad you all are doing well this evening. What do you have for us tonight, Adega?
Terrible stuff. Sorry. Um,
Terrible stuff.
yeah, kind of, sort of. Before I get into it, there's two different things I want to talk about tonight. And before I get into it, I do want to give a disclaimer. The things I am going to talk about represent only a couple of or small groups of individuals. It is not representative of everyone, especially when I talk about religions or the different types of groups. I'm not saying the entire religion or the entire group of people buy into this, but there are bits and pieces in every organization that are not exactly what they seem to be. And I am getting into one of those. Um, I hope the truth doesn't hurt some people too much, but this is how it is. I shared, and some of you may know this one, I shared with Loki a picture of a golden statue. And it is a very old reproduction. And we have new ones nowadays. They don't quite look the same. They usually have children around it, and the main character has two fingers pointing up, but it's representative of the same ancient creature. So that there.
I hope that doesn't
I,
kick me.
yeah, this is something that happened under my nose. I didn't catch it as it happened, so this is about a year and a half old. Um, but I'm going to read an article. There were several different groups that wrote about this. Most of them are religious groups because this is quite terrifying. So bear with me as I read. Like I said, I got something else after that, and it's not quite as painful as this one is. The title of this article, which you can find it in several others, the Vatican mounts giant statue of demon Moloch at the Roman Colosseum. Without a doubt, it truly is an abomination that a gigantic statue of Moloch is now standing right at the entrance of the Colosseum, where so many Christians were brutally slaughtered by the Romans. Now, I'm going to jump out of here. Those of you who don't know Moloch, this gets into a little bit. It talks about child sacrifice, but Moloch represents uh, basically it's an awful lot like what they do in several different groups. You heard of Bohemian Grove, those type of things, where they give away their ability to have compassion or sacrifice what they say care. They no longer care. It becomes a belief system in that whatever benefits me at whatever expense is worthwhile. And that's what Moloch represents. So look at what the new Italian leftist globalist government is now up to after they kicked Matteo, it's the Italian leader, Salvini from power. Can you believe this? Tourists that visit the Colosseum in Rome these days are getting quite a shock. A gigantic statue of the pagan Canaanite deity known as Moloch has been erected right at the entrance. In ancient times, those that served Moloch would literally sacrifice their children to him. And you've heard me talk about these things before. And I have also mentioned to a few of you that I have seen a video of some really horrible things given to me by someone I don't know who, and was taken away from me by I don't know how, and I'm glad it's gone. But either way, these things do happen nowadays too. And apparently this involved burning the children to death. And now a massive statue of this pagan idol is the centerpiece of a new archaeological exhibition at the world-famous Roman Colosseum. Yes, the exact same Colosseum where countless numbers of Christians were martyrs for their faith. Let's skip a little bit because this person gets a little redundant. I know that sounds almost too strange to be true, but this is actually happening. A reconstruction of the temple deity Moloch linked to the Phoenician and the Carthaginian religions in the famous film of 1914. You can look it up. There's some images of this film. It was pretty grim. Caballera, it's an Italian film. Let's see. All of these are referencing to this enormous statue of Moloch. But according to the Wikipedia, this pagan god was also known as Moloch, Malcolm, and Melkame. So it has several different names. Baphomet, you guys may know that one. It's also related. That's the one that we see more nowadays, but it's the same one. But we'll stick with it. He says for purposes, it gets into the name a little bit more about Moloch and everything else. The organizers of this exhibition could have chosen to put Moloch in a dark corner where nobody would have really noticed him, but instead they purposely decided to feature him in a place where 100% of the visitors to the Colosseum would immediately see him. Here's where things get a little painful for some people, and I'm sorry, but this is how life is. One woman that recently visited the Colosseum told the news agency here that what she witnessed. We were so excited the day we decided to go to the Colosseum. But the moment we got there, the sight that greeted us was horrifying. Standing guard over the entrance was the colossal pagan statue Moloch. It was placed in the prime spot so that everyone that entered the Colosseum had to pass by it. There is no way that such a thing could have been done without direct permission from the highest levels of the Vatican. The Colosseum in Rome is owned by the Vatican, and specifically by the Diocese of Rome, also called the Holy See. If anyone wants to do anything there, they must get permission from the office of the Diocese in Rome. This exhibition, called Catherigo, the Immortal Myth, could not be held there unless permission was granted at the highest levels. So, like I said, this one kind of passed by me. There are some choice words about some of the people in some leadership there, which I'm not going to get into. I think I've done enough damage for the evening. But this is a statue of a pagan deity from long ago that is meant for people to burn children alive at his feet, all so that they could say that they don't care and are selfish monsters. Put there.
Shane Nolan says there are jokes about Hollywood sacrificing children to Moloch.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but there are, let's just say, not all of those things are jokes. And I have No, I'll just leave it at that. If you trust me, great. If you don't, that's fine. But let's move on. That thing kind of makes me sick. Uh, what I do want to get into is something a little less known, brought to my attention again recently. Uh, there are a lot of offshoots of uh, cryptoids that come into our, I don't say popular culture. Slender Man happens to be one of them. And I'm not talking about Slender Man, but probably it seems like it may have been an origin into a Lakota legend. I'm going to read to you a little article about that. Yeah, the name of this guy is Walking Sam. There's a few other names, but I'm going to read this to you. It's a short article. And I've been to this place. Near the Black Hills of South Dakota sits one of the largest Indian reservations in the country, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, home of the Oglala Lakota tribe. Pine Ridge has a long history of trauma. I think probably some of you have been here as well because of what has happened here. It's the site where hundreds of Lakota Indians were killed during the Wounded Knee Massacre. And it's currently one of the poorest counties in the U.S. When it made headlines in 2015 for a spree of teenage suicides, many began to suggest that darker supernatural forces were at work at Pine Ridge, citing the urban legend of Walking Sam. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have been to these areas, and this is kind of debunk a little bit of the Walking Sam, but I cannot debunk people's legends because I am one of the people, and you guys know this already, that if something exists somewhere along the line, like a legend, there's stories and there's legends, but when it's a legend, there's something somewhere in it that was seated in truth. So, you know what? Just take it or leave it for what you say. But I do know that on these reservations, um, for the Lakota anyway, because there's some really rich Native American tribes. Lakota aren't one. And when I visited, just you see this field of grass here. Let's see if Loki has that picture up. Uh, I think I gave it to him. It's a sign for entering the area.
No, these are the only two you gave me. Was
Okay.
the golden one and this one.
Let me give this to you real quick. It's a little important. Sorry, I thought I had given this to you.
It's cool.
It's coming right now.
Okay.
It's nothing exciting, but it's just a point of reference for you when you see it.
Let's see.
Let's see if it boots him.
Nope. Still
Made
here.
it without booting. Okay, you see the grass there? When I had visited, there's lots of fields like this. Think of your typical thing when you think of a reservation, very impoverished trailers, rundown buildings. Once upon a time, it looked like it was almost prosperous. But I remember when I visited and I saw the grass and it would move without the wind. And so I went out there and walked, and I would find about this is literally true, about every 10, 15 meters, there was some tribesman passed out from either alcohol or meth, just laying out in the field, all over the place. They had no hope or future, so they did drugs and passed out on the field. Anyone wonder why I don't do alcohol? Some of these things it's sad. It's very sad. Um, anyway, let's go ahead back into Walking Sam. Between December of 2014 and March of 2015, there were 103 suicide attempts made. 9 of those were successful, and none of the victims were older than 25. Many died by hanging. In previous years, there had been other clusters of suicides, but none this large. Stuck in a crisis situation with no clear answers, many began to point to a sinister force It has long existed in Native American tradition and lore. Children raised in Lakota households grow up hearing of suicide spirits, stick people, or shadow people who attempt to lure adolescents from the safety of their homes at night. Over time, and with the explosion of the popularity in Slender Man, these stories may have morphed into a single figure known as Walking Sam. There was not too long ago, still within this time frame, same place, and this article doesn't get into it. There was a large group, I think it was 7 of these youth there, that decided they were done. They all walked out in the field. Each had a rope. They were all going to hang themselves. They were dead set on it. And there was someone, one of the locals, discovered what they were doing and put a stop to it. And according to some of the reports that came out, they thought, or they quoted that these kids said they were mesmerized, that they didn't know why they were doing it, but they were just all happily walking off to hang themselves. All right. Though he goes by other names as well, mostly the Tall Man, Stovepipe Hat, or even Bigfoot. Most of the stories describe Walking Sam as a 7-foot tall figure with eyes but no mouth, sometimes wearing a stovepipe hat. When he raises his arms, one sees the bodies of previous victims hanging beneath. When teenagers hear him calling, he tries to persuade them for how worthless they are, encouraging them to kill themselves. Some believe he targets younger people because they are more susceptible to his tricks. There are those who believe he is not even necessary as a malicious entity, but rather one who wanders the forest as in some sort of punishment, and is merely looking for companionship. There are also those obvious ties to the boogeyman folklore and Slenderman legends. Slenderman really isn't a legend. All of you know that he was something that just popped up a few years ago. But from cryptozoologist standpoint, some believe he may be another version of, or in fact related to, Bigfoot. Finally, for a people group who have, why did he write it that way? For a people group who have such an intertwined spiritual connection between the land and their heritage, some believe that Walking Sam is a sort of physical manifestation of the hunt and trauma that Lakota Indians experience on a regular basis. And then it goes into about the growing epidemic of suicides. Last time I was there, the teen pregnancy rate was 50%. The methamphetamine use was over 70%. And I remembered, I've told you guys this before, and it was the wildest thing. If you ever go to some of these older zoos, not the more humane ones, where they would have a tiger or something in a cage and you'd watch it, it would just pace back and forth, because it had nowhere to go, nothing to do. It was slowly being driven mad. And on the reservation, every night, you would see the people get in their cars, and since this is miles away from anything, a good hour's drive, they would just get in their cars and circle the school, even adults, 30 cars in a row, just driving in circles every night for no reason but being caged. So whether it is this Walking Sam, Slender Man, Bigfoot, Stovepipe Hat, I don't know. But I do know that there is an influence there that drives people into depression to such a state that the youth try to commit suicide. All right, Loki, it's up to you.
Thank you very much, Adega. Thank you, brother. That's and some of that stuff is it's right there. All you have to do is see it. That's what I've always said. It's right there. You just have to open your eyes and see it.
Yeah.
So, have any of you ever heard the name Frau Perkta? Any of you out there ever heard the name Frau Perkta? I'll show a picture, dear Frau. Frau is like an evil Santa Claus. Let's see.
Now, that one name you brought up earlier, I did know, but the Frau Perkta, I don't know.
That's Frau. That is Frau. Frau Perkta, as well as known as Krampus, which is a shame because this Christmas time goddess, witch, all around terrifying gal, deserves a lot more press. She's a staple in the Alpine regions of southern Germany and Austria, relatively under the radar in North America. So let's get to know Frau Perkta a little better, shall we? Frau Perkta was also known as Bertha or Bertha, and has also been called Spinnstubenfrau, or the spinning room lady. She's often depicted with a beaked nose made of iron, dressed in rags, perhaps carrying a cane, and generally resembles a decrepit old crone. But this old crone packs a wallop and carries a long knife hidden under her shirt. She also bears a resemblance to the Scandinavian goddess Frigga, and both of them share one obsession in common: spinning, specifically, and domestic neatness generally. Frankly, she's pretty judgy about the state of your home for a woman who dresses all in rags. Legend has it, though, that you better get all your flax spun by the 12th night, January 6th, for when the Christmas season is over, it would be time to set up the big upright loom, at which time you must have enough thread to warp it and start your weaving. And that's Frau Perkta's punishment for those ladies who haven't finished all their weaving. In Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, there were numerous tales of Frau Perkta trampling and even setting fire to half-spun fibers. And you should really irritate her, like say, not only is your flax not spun, but your house is a total and complete mess. This goddess, witch, hates a messy house. You even failed to leave out a traditional bowl of porridge for her? Well, then her rampaging will extend far beyond your slovenly spinning room. She'll do nothing less than steal into your bedroom, disembowel you, and replace your guts with rocks and straw. Do not fuck with Frau Perkta. But Perkta does more than just check up on your spinning. Other legends equate Frau Perkta with the legend of the Wild Hunt, and say that she flies through the night sky attended by an army of lost souls, including the demonic-looking Perkten, her army of servants who are visually nearly indistinguishable from Krampus. The only way to know for sure is context. Krampus rides aboard a St. Nicholas Eve, while the Perkten tend more towards Epiphany in the last 3 Thursdays before Christmas, also known as Burkle Nights or Knocking Nights. Also among her army of the night are the souls of unbaptized children. Legend has it, if you hear the wind and thunder roaring and rumbling through the mountains of the Burkle Nights, you're really hearing the sounds of Perkta leading the wild hunt. Another one of Frau Perkta's names is Holly, a winter goddess whose name means shining or bright, hence her association with Epiphany, the shining night, on which the star of Bethlehem shone down. Her dual nature is expressed in the fact that there are both evil or ugly Perkten and pretty Perkten, both of whom you might find in a typical Perkten loft or Perkten run in the Alpine regions of Europe. The pretty Perkten are all well and good, but honestly, I'm a bigger fan of the evil Perkta. She's the one I love to fear in these days leading up to Christmas. With every passing moment, my anxiety mounts as I try to finish, if not all, my spinning. All my housework and cleaning in time for Christmas season is done. As I sweep and mop and clean and dust, I visualize the old crone sneaking into my kitchen late at night, running her withered red claw-like fingers over the baseboards and tops of the cupboards, checking for dust. She creeps through the house like a mad Martha Stewart crossed with a Grinch who stole Christmas. And if I should fail in my housekeeping, well, I'm going to get gutted. Let's just say it really motivates me to pick up around the house. Also, initially, Perkter was the upholder of cultural taboos, such as the prohibition against spinning on holidays. In the folklore of Bavaria and Austria, Perkter was said to roam the countryside at midwinter and to enter homes during the 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany. She would know whether the children and young service of the household had behaved well and worked hard all year. If they had, they might find a small silver coin the next day in a shoe or a pail. If they had not, she would slit their bellies open, remove their stomach and guts, and stuff the whole with straw and pebbles. She was particularly concerned to see that girls had spun the whole time their allotted portion of flax or wool during the year. She would also slit people's bellies open and stuff them with straw if they ate something on the night of her feast day, other than the traditional meal of fish and gruel. God, I love this chick. You want to talk about keeping your kids in line? The cult of Perkta, under which
just want to interrupt if I can. That picture, Krampus escorting the kids, Perkta with their intestines used as chains. Yeah. That's the.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Later canonical and church documents characterize Perkta as synonymous with other leading female spirits: Hulda, Diana, Herodias, Rochella, and Abundia. Grimm, yes, Grimm, as in Grimm fairy tales, thought Hulda is her equivalent, while the Weibe Frauen may derive directly from Perkta in her white form. The word Perkten is plural for Perkta, and this has become the name of her entourage as well as the name of animal masks worn in parades and festivals in mountain regions of Austria. In the 16th century, the Perkten took two forms. Some are beautiful and bright, known as the beautiful Perkten. These came during the 12 nights and festivals to bring luck and wealth to people. The other form is the ugly Perkten, who have fangs, tusks, horsetails, which are used to drive out demons and ghosts. Men dressed as the ugly Perkten during the 16th century and went from house to house driving out bad spirits. Sometimes Der Teufel is viewed as the most ugly Perkt and Frau Perkta as the most beautiful Perkt. In Italy, Perkta is roughly equivalent to La Befana, who visits all the children in Italy on the night before 6th January to fill their socks with candy if they were well behaved, or lumps of coal if they were not. According to Jacob Grimm in 1882, Perkta was spoken of in Old High German in the 10th century as Frau Berkta, and thought to be a white-robed goddess who oversaw spinning and weaving like the mythos of Hulda. He believed she was the feminine equivalent of Berchtold and was sometimes the leader of the Wild Hunt. However, John B. Smith disagreed and suggested that Perkta represented the personification of the feast of the Epiphany, Perkta's Day, and is therefore not a pre-Christian deity. In contemporary culture, Perkta is portrayed as a rewarder of the generous and the punisher of the bad, particularly lying children, as you can see in the picture. Today in Austria, particularly Salzburg, where she is said to wander through Hohensalzburg Castle. I hope I said that correctly for our friends in Germany and Austria. In the dead of night, the Perkten are still a traditional part of holidays and festivals, such as the Carnival of the Fastnacht. The wooden animal masks made for the festivals are today called Perkten. In the Pongau region of Austria, large processions of beautiful Perchten and ugly Perchten are held every winter. Beautiful masks are said to encourage financial windfalls, and ugly masks are worn to drive away evil spirits. Other regional variations include the Tresterer in the Austrian region, the stilt dancers in the town of Unken, um, Trunked Perkt in the Unterenschel region, and Glockterlaufen bell running. A number of large ski resorts have turned the tradition into a tourist attraction, drawing large crowds every single winter. And that is all the information I have on Perkta. Loki, everyone knows Santa Claus comes from Finland, Eric K. Thank you, Eric K.
We got a
But
lot of
it's
people who know
interesting.
things about Perk. I've been watching the chat as you've been reading. Dave, Bob, Purple. I'm learning something. You know.
Yeah, I never knew about this. I just happened to come across this. I was looking for creepy shit to talk about for Christmas, and voila, Perkta.
I knew of Krampus, but I didn't know he was, or at least versions of it, were henchmen of this Perkta. Uh, well, it goes to show how people got out of the Middle Ages. You scare the kids to death, they'd be good throughout their lives.
Well, what's really interesting is she's part of the Wild Hunt, and that's a Fae. That's a Fae thing. Actually, no, a Fae. Have you ever met a Fae, Dega?
I don't think so.
I've met one.
I mean, it's
And
nothing that you run into in West
no,
Hollywood. Okay.
no, absolutely not. It is absolutely not something you run into at West Hollywood.
That is actually, if I had a request, and you can do whatever you want, but Wild Hunt, I know a lot of us have probably first heard of it with the Witcher stuff. It'd be interesting if you covered that sometime.
I would love to do that right before Christmas.
Sounds great.
Let's see. Let's look on. Oh, 23rd. So that's the eve of Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to be available on the 23rd, I will talk about the Wild Hunt on the 23rd. What a date to talk about it.
I'll be there.
All right. Guys, you heard it here first. Set your calendars, set your clocks, stop your grinning and drop your linen. We are going to talk about the Wild Hunt on the eve of Christmas Eve.
Awesome.
When Santa was a shaman. I will, Psychodorf Time. I've got to talk about something next week because we're not going to talk about the Wild Hunt next week. So
Yeah, because most of
I
our
will.
Christmas stuff does come out of the Vikings. I think we talked about that before.
Yes, the Yule. The Yule.
Everything. Yep.
See, the Vikings believed that the evergreen tree, was like the god of trees because it survived all winter long and it didn't lose its leaves. So something that survived all winter without shedding its leaves, they just thought that was the greatest thing. So what they would do is they would go out and find the biggest damn evergreen they could find. They'd cut that son of a bitch down, bring it into the longhouse, the community house, and burn that wood all winter long. And that was their way of saying, we are going to use the biggest, baddest tree out there to survive all winter long. Getting through the winter was a chore every year. This was the hardest part of the year. So they would have almost like a Yule party and get drunk and eat, and they'd all sleep in this big long house because that's where all the fire was burning all night long. You could guarantee get a good night's sleep in the community house, in the long house, every night through the winter months.
Right. Nah, it's fascinating stuff.
And hence where we get joyous Yuletide.
Yep. Amazing.
Punk Waddle says, sounds nice and warm and cozy. Probably going to need some eggnog to get through it. Yes. I would hope so.
They had mead back then, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
what I
They had
thought.
alcohol. Yep. They had meat.
Well, I knew they had alcohol, but I was thinking it was specifically the honey the mead.
Yep, they had honey mead. Snorted Boost, just call me Nanook, the polar bear god.
Snorty.
And yeah, the Yuletide log. Yule log. Mead drink, yes. We're out of here, guys. unless you got something to share, Dega. We're getting out of here.
Nah, we did good. I enjoyed this a lot. Thank you for terrifying me with that image.
Anytime. I'll try and come up with something even more extraordinarily creepy next week.
I can show you some woodcuts from actual things that happened in the Middle Ages, but probably not.
We'll get to that eventually.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Go raid EBN. They're on. Go raid them. Go raid them. Tell them Valhalla sent you. Everybody go over there. Go over there and tell them Adega and Loki sent us. Hashtag Valhalla. Valhalla raid.
They missed all the fun.
They missed all the fun. You tell them. You tell EBN you missed all the fun. Good night, everybody. Have a great one. Be excellent to each other and always speak friend to enter.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.
Or Krampus will get you.